welcome to episode 5 of Creativity in the Valley. Today we have John Butler from John A. Butler, who's joining us for our conversation today. So John, welcome. Thank you for joining us. So the whole point of our podcast is we like to meet with other creative like-minded people. In this instance, you're a photographer, so obviously a lot of creativity behind that. And we just like to really go about, you know, what gets you going, what kind of creativity juices help you flow and, you know, gives you your ideas. So that's really what our podcast is all about. You've been behind the camera most of the time, so you already know what we do. But yeah, I mean, that's what today's all about. So we're going to kind of just jump right into it and, you know, tell us a little bit about John and all that kind of fun stuff.
I can try. Of course, I'm a recluse. I'm very shy.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding. Basically, I live in Petawawa with my beautiful wife and 2 beautiful daughters. And basically, I just drive my wife crazy because I breathe and live photography, and I'll be at home and that's all I want to do is talk photography, and of course she doesn't want to do that. So
that's why you meet people like us.
Exactly. Don't know what to say. I started my business, I started photography about over 20 years ago. I was actually a rock and roll drummer back then, and going to school for that, decided that's not what I wanted to do, and changed majors to audiovisual communications, which actually incorporated photography 101 in it.
Yeah.
Did that for about a semester, said, you know what, school's not for me, and I left. Went back to my old job as a parts driver for an automotive place. Found a job, luckily, at a magazine called Muscle Mag International, which got me started in the photography. He had his own bodybuilding magazine, women's fitness magazine, and so basically I just started taking pictures around the place, and he's like, hey, if you get some good stuff, let me see it, maybe I can use it.
Yep.
And he bought one and put it in the magazine. I think it was like $25 he bought it for. And next thing you know, I've got a picture in a magazine going all over the world with my little subtitle on there, and it's like, hey, this can be kind of fun.
Yeah,
and that's when I started picking it up in that. So back in the old film days.
Back in the film days. You can still do film today.
Oh yes.
And then, you know, where are you right now in terms of your photography?
I've changed so much. Like, I started off, like I said, as a bodybuilding fitness photographer. So that's all I did was bodybuilding, fitness, swimsuits, things like that.
Yeah.
And did that for about 9.5 years, doing the odd family shoot here and there. But basically, that's what I did for about 9.5 years while I worked at Muscle Mag. Left Muscle Mag to do it full time. And that's when I started branching out into family portraits, into weddings, things like that. Now I find I've actually put a lot of that behind me. I still have a lot of friends from that industry, but I don't do a lot of bodybuilding fitness anymore. It's more family portraits, weddings, starting to get more into the more creative, fun, just having more glamour and fashion stuff, which is what I...
And we'll get into that because some of the images we have, we kind of go through that a bit. So, you know, we talk about family portraits and stuff like that. So we have this one image here. I think you just did this last...
That was in the summer that
just passed,
Probably,
right?
Yeah, close to fall.
Wonderful looking family, and you know, when I look at it, I think the lighting is what really makes this image kind of pop. How did that shoot go for you? Like, what was so creative about it that made you...
Well, the one thing that really helped was the family itself.
Yeah.
They were so open to any ideas that I had, but they were willing to bring ideas also.
Yeah.
So it was a collaboration of that. And then I went and scouted the location a couple days before, actually, because I'd never been there. It was about 20 minutes outside of here, closer to Eganville. And they had this property. It's a big country house with country land, lots of trees and brush and rocks. And we found this little area there, and I said, you know what, when I come, I'm going to start right here. And they were like, okay. So I already had it in my mind what I wanted to do with it. So basically all I did for that, that's just, I guess you would call it a 2-light setup, but it's basically just one of my studio lights with a battery pack with a big, I think it's like the 32-inch or 35-inch Octibank as my main light coming in. And then that rim light that's on, you can see the gentleman in the back mostly, and on their hair and stuff, that's basically just the sun, the sky.
Yep.
So it's just mixing that ambient light with the flash, and able to get that look to make that 3D pop out.
Yeah.
And
the reason, you know, that I find it's a good use of your surrounding area, I think, is what really kind of makes that image kind of pop out. So
well, that's who they are.
Yep.
They live, that's their house, that's where they live, and that's their kind of, even the clothing, like I'm not big on patterns and that, but with this, with the plaid shirt, it still worked.
Yep.
Because that's who they are. You want their character into this picture. And the little girls were just like
awesome, right?
Oh, they were amazing. They were a ball of fun, flying all over the place. They couldn't wait to get their picture taken.
Well, that's awesome. So now we're going to go into the questions about creativity and kind of explain what it is that gets you going. So my first thing is, do you strive to be unique or creative in your endeavors? And then kind of expand on that. Why?
I do. I think everybody that's in a creative field like this, you always want to do something that's going to be you, that nobody else is doing. So you try to do that little creativity where it's unique to you. But I think what happens is you still end up, when you get your personality into it, you still end up doing stuff that a lot of people can relate to. So as unique as it is, I find my stuff still tends to sort of favor, I guess, some of the people that inspire me.
Yeah.
I think the only way to make it unique in yourself is to work with the client itself.
Okay.
Because you got to bring yourself into it, but you got to make sure you get what the client wants too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so as unique as you want to be, sometimes they don't want that.
No.
And sometimes that's where you just got to say, you know what can we do together to still make it unique, but to make it ours.
Yeah.
And that's all I can think
That's
of.
a good one. And then you were talking about the experiences and the people that inspired you. So the next question is, again, who or what experience have inspired you towards the path you've been taking?
The stuff I like to look at are the stuff that makes me have to think.
Yeah.
I love stuff like Annie Leibovitz, who some people don't know is a lot of Rolling Stone magazine and now does a lot of stuff for Vanity Fair the last couple of years. I just love the way she can take groups and just make it look so simple, but at the same time, just something that is, like you said, unique. The way she does her groups and just the way she spaces them. So I love looking at her work. I love watching a commercial photographer named Carl Taylor, this stuff, because he's got that commercial background. So he's more of the technical. So I like watching that just to see the technicality of how I can get this light to do that or how I can do this, but then bring it back to like an Annie Leibovitz type of thing where it's more feel.
Yeah.
Because without the feeling, you don't have a picture.
Yeah, so I want to add to the lighting part there. So right now we have this image, which I know you think you just did the last couple of weeks or something like that.
Yeah, it's a couple months.
You know, and when you look at lighting-wise, I mean, this is a very well-lit subject, and you were just talking about, you know, the technical side and being able to know, you know, how you light it and every stuff like that. So again, let's kind of just talk about that image and why it kind of, who inspired you, like, you know, how it kind of went with that.
The funny thing about this was, I love black and white.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe my background in the bodybuilding fitness where that black and white, getting the textures and that, maybe installed in my mind a lot. But I love doing black and white. So whenever I get a chance to do it, I'm all for it. And this was actually the model there, Anne-Marie there. This was actually her idea. She had a plan. She had a picture she had seen before and said, this is what I kind of want to do. And she's like, can we do this? I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
So very simple. I think there's... you got your main light coming in, and I'm very much into three-dimensional textures. I don't like that flat look, unless it's something that really garners for that. I like to bring it off to the side a bit, get those shadows on the one side. I'm also very much not into fill light. I like to use reflectors.
Yeah.
I like the subtlety of them, and I can adjust them just by moving them.
Yep.
And I believe there's a reflector to the right side there.
Yeah, right now I'm looking at this and I think there's a light here, there's a light here, and then there's a reflector here.
Exactly.
That's
so
what
basically
I'm seeing.
you got the main light coming in on her from the camera left or the model's right.
Yeah. I'm saying that on the
and
podcast,
it's feathering,
and people
yes.
have no idea
exactly.
how I'm like lighting
so
that
it's
with my
feathering
hands.
them. It's feathering the light on her a little bit more. It's nice and close to make it nice and soft, but still have that little gradual shadows. And then to fill in the shadows a bit, I bring a reflector into the side a bit to my liking, to where it's nice. And then I have another light coming from behind opposite the main light.
Yeah.
So to the camera right behind her, up really high in with a strip bank, which is a long strip light there that not only acts as a sort of like a kicker on the back shoulder a little bit. I didn't want too much on the shoulder because I still want that shadow, I want that contrast, but it gives a nice little hair light.
Yep.
And then the background is just a gray seamless backdrop that just has an even light on it. And then sometimes what I'll actually do, and I don't think I did on this one, but sometimes I do, is depending on how high your ceiling is, I'll actually take a studio light with nothing on it, just the normal reflector that's on it, and I'll go really high and I'll just bounce it off the ceiling. It makes a big soft box. It's like a sky almost, and it just brings that nice little subtlety to the hair, which is really nice.
And you're using the gray because you know that's my favorite backdrop to use. It's
gray and white is my favorite
friend.
too.
All right, so let's go on to our next question. My third question is, when was the first time that you kind of realized that you are a creative person? I mean, you're talking about drumming and everything like that. I mean, drumming requires
I think
some
basically
of that?
I've always, in my family, I've always been, I guess, the artsy one.
Yep.
Because I grew up with 3 brothers, an older one, 2 younger, and in our house it was always sports.
Yeah.
Like we were in hockey rinks 6 nights a week. We were coaching, playing,
Canadians
refereeing,
do, right?
exactly. Like we lived in the hockey rinks. Even in the summer, like we played soccer and baseball, but always went back to summer hockey too.
Yeah.
So it was a big family of sports oriented. I was really the one that got, I guess, creative into the arts. Like I started off as a drummer, growing up in school, playing in bands and stuff like that, playing in school bands, playing in rock bands, everything like that. And then as soon as the camera hit me, I thought, you know what, this is a medium that I think I can be creative and I can actually express who I am. I found in the music, as a drummer, it's hard to do that because you're in the back of the band. You're always in the back burner. Here I can stand up, I can still do what I got to do, but not be in the forefront, if that makes sense.
It does.
But it also, as you know, as photographers, we are in our brains. People don't want to be in our brains because we got things going on in there that, and it's even harder to try and put it on paper because you get a model, they're not in your brain.
No.
They don't know what vision you're looking at. And I don't know how many times I'll go do a family shoot and I'll say, you know what, or even a wedding. You're saying to the bride and groom, okay, we're going to put you over there and this is what I'm going to do. And they're looking at the background like, really, he's going to make that look good? Like that's terrible. And they don't see what we can see through that. We know what each lens can do. We know what this, and it's not until you take that shot and you show them, say, this is what I want to do, and they're like, oh, okay. Then they see your vision. So I mean, I think I've always had that creativity in me. It's just a matter of photography's been a way for me to get it out.
That's very cool. So, and you're talking about the drummer. That's just cool. So we got Brian behind one of our cameras today, who's like, you know, the engineer guy for the tracks and everything. You're a drummer. I play guitar. We should just start a Auto Valley Studios band. And
there you go.
We're good to go.
Just need a singer.
Bree, can you sing? Agata.
There you go.
Agata can sing. Okay. Next question. So this happens. I know what happens to me, and it's very. Kind of, I mean, it happens a lot in photography, but how do you deal with creative blocks?
That's a good one. And I go through that a lot. I find the best ways for me to get out of creative block is, it's a multi-process. One is stuff like Instagram and Pinterest. I love those for creative blocks because I follow people on Instagram, plus people on Pinterest. You can go on there and you just look at the stuff that's out there and it just gets you inspired. Like if I'm going to do a wedding the night before, I might sit on some of these other sites, Pinterest, go to some websites, type in weddings, wedding photography in Google and just look at the things just to get some inspiration with what you maybe want to try and achieve. And believe it or not, the other two that I think get me out of that creative block is driving. Don't ask me why, but I could be driving down the street and you just see something or something just pops in your head. And I think an old a composer, David Foster, he used to do that all the time. There was I saw the making and when he did that "We Are the World" type of thing. I think it was called "We Are the World," or it's "We Are the World."
Yeah, it's "We Are the World."
And you see him in his car with a tape recorder, and he's actually singing the actual notes. He's humming it, and then he's saying B flat, C flat, all right? And so that when he gets back, he hasn't forgotten it. So that's kind of like me. I'll be driving, and then things will just pop in my mind. And the other thing's shower, believe it or not.
Okay. Well, we don't want to go into detail.
Sitting in the shower, and things just go through my mind.
And you know, I mean, I know one of the things you've been trying to do a little bit more. You have been trying to be more creative with some of your images, and this one, I believe this is your daughter,
That's
right?
That's my youngest daughter.
Your youngest daughter. So you know, let's talk about that because there's a lot going on with this image. And
sure. That was actually, I believe I had my children at the studio to actually do like a family shoot with their cousins. One of their cousins in the military out west, and he was back for, I think that was around New Year's, like in the January. And so they wanted to get some pictures with their cousins in the studio. So we're shooting away. We got everything we needed. The cousins left, and then the funny thing is, my daughter there, she found that mask. I think that's one of Brian's masks, actually.
Yeah, it is.
And she found that sitting in the studio, and she's like, can I get a picture with this? I'm like, sure, I don't think Brian's going to mind. So we grabbed it, and it's just against a gray backdrop, actually. She picked it up, and then I said, okay, stay like that, and I shot it. And then when I got home, all of a sudden, instead of just making it just a normal shot of her holding this mask, I thought, okay, let's get these creative juices going. And so just a mixture of Photoshop and Nik software. I just came up with this, what I find is kind of a surreal, almost looks like an 1800s ball, getting ready to go for a ball. Added the textured background, added the golden hue to everything, just to sort of warm it up, but I didn't want her face to go too warm. And my biggest problem I find when I'm doing this is I have the ideas in my head, and how do I do it? Like, how can I make that vision in my head do it? and then make it look real.
Yeah.
There's so many times where you'll see we do a shoot, any photographer, and sometimes you do it and it's like you have to redo it again. Yeah. You have to redo it because it's not working for you, or it doesn't look real. It doesn't look like she was shot against that background.
Yeah, it happens, right?
And to me, that's her personality. She's just like that. She's bubbly. She just wants to try new things, and she's just always smiling. And to me, my favorite part about that I think is her eyes.
Yeah,
they just
pop.
It's
a great shot.
Pop right out.
She has got a very natural smile happening.
Exactly.
And I'm not sure if we have this image up, but do you have a favorite creation, like a favorite piece that you've created?
I do actually. There's one I think I gave to him was the Pirate.
Yep.
That's actually a local friend of mine here. He has a company called Sunshine Graphics.
Yep.
Robin Jarda, and this was part of how vendors get together and do things together. There was a hairstylist salon that was in Petawawa that was running a princess thing for a day where you can actually, your daughter can come in. I can't remember what they charged. Charge a minimum amount. They bring their daughters in dressed like princesses. All the staff was dressed like princesses, and they can come and get their hair done like a princess and their makeup, and they had little treats for them. Yeah. And they had me set up in a little teeny room, like not half the size of this room, where after it was done, they could come up, get their picture taken, and then I just donated my time, and then everything, we went back home, I got them all ready, and put them on a link and said, here, you can download them right from here, they're yours, do what you want. It was a way that I was helping out, because they had helped me out in the past with stuff.
It's a community thing, right?
Exactly. So it was something, a way to give back. So we did that, and it's funny, because this shot, I've actually got only a 4-foot pink backdrop that's going down onto the floor so I can shoot these little girls, and he comes in with his daughter, he's dressed like a pirate. And I'm like, as he came in, he got his picture with her, and he's like, I'd like to get one myself. I'm like, okay. So I shot it, and actually the backdrop, the way I shot it, it's coming through his head, so you see some of the ceiling. Yeah. And I showed him the picture. I said, you know what, this is the picture I love. I said, don't worry, it's not going to look like this. I'm going to make this look amazing. And so he trusted me with it, and I took it home, and it probably took me about a month before I actually worked on it, before I actually had the chance to sit down and really work on it. My whole vision for that was I wanted it to look like that old 1800s pirate coming off the boat, going into a saloon, and they just happened to have this little photo booth in the corner. He just went and got his picture taken, and because he pulls the part off so well, and that belt clip that he's wearing there that has the knife in it. He actually makes that. He made that himself. He makes these little leather things all the time, and so it's a part of him in there. And this is his personality. He's totally out there. He's one of the funnest guys you'll ever meet. So he went with it, and so I had to work with it a couple times and that, but I was able to get that old texture, that sort of sepia, but more of a warmish type of sepia to it. Yeah. And I think I pulled it off. It came out the way I wanted to. It's probably one of my favorite pieces I've done in the last year.
It's a very, very good piece. So that's kind of the creative side. Now, a lot of these next questions you actually answered at the beginning was like, how long have you been a photographer? Well, like 20 plus years, right?
Like around 1992,
we already know that.
Something like that.
We already talked about how you got your start. It was with the Muscle Mag and the fitness and everything like that. So you're just like going through. So this is a tough one because you didn't bring your camera with you, but what's in your bag right now?
Well, I'm probably the only one in the studio that actually shoots Canon. But yeah, I have a couple Canon cameras in my bag at all times. I also, my favorite go-to lens, 7200 2.8 lens. I love that. I can put that on my camera, leave it on there all day if I had a chance. I just love the compression it does and just what I can do with it. I have my 1635 2.8 lens by Canon, or no, it's the f4 lens actually. It's the image stabilized f4, the new one that just came out. I love that lens. It gives me a perspective. Like I'm still working right now on, I like using my crop sensors because I do a lot of sports photography and I like to have that zoom. And the cameras are so good nowadays that for what I do, I don't need the larger sensor yet. I know I'm going to break down and eventually do it. But yeah, so that's why I love my 1635 and then my 50, the nifty 50 as they call it. I love that for portrait work. Because on that crop sensor, it is like a portrait lens. It is like an 80-85, so I love that that lens. I'm not a fan of using on-camera flash a lot. I do have multiple flashes in there. I mean, you need it for weddings and stuff, but even when I am using it, I'm never pointing at the people. I'm bouncing it off ceilings and walls. I don't like the look of it. If I can get it off camera, I will. So
I want to talk about the on-camera flash. It's the one thing that I think any photographer that starts off should know to never use that flash that's built into the camera.
I tell my students in the classes that I teach, that if I had the chance that I could rip that right off the camera and throw it, I would.
I almost wonder why they even bother putting that thing in there.
Like now, the only thing that I do say that would be good use for that is if you're using it to trigger something. Tone it right down so it's not affecting the picture. Yeah. And you can use it to trigger other flashes. That I understand. But like you said, to just sit there and I
hate that thing. Okay, so I want to go on to, again, it's about creativity and everything like that, and one of the things that you're trying to do and get into is the pinups, right? And this is one image that stood out for me from your pinup collection that I've had a look at. And the nice thing about this, I mean, aside from your model and the ironing board, everything else is comp.
It's all comp. I learned this technique from a friend of mine named Mike Long out of Portland, Oregon there. It's a style that he does. It's the old Vargas style pinups, but you do a modern twist to it. So you don't even have to have the old pinup outfits if you don't want to. Like, it is nice, we do have the sundresses that we get them to wear and stuff, but it's a way that the woman can come in and be anything they want. It's like, shooting boudoir, you have the sets there most of the time, and so there's a look that you're going for. Yeah. With this, it's all done with consultation because you need to, because you got to get that look that they want. And then, like you said, we'll shoot the model. She's actually just standing there holding the iron. Yep. The ironing board's in front of her with the shirt on it. Yep. And like you said, that's all that was there. We added the floor, the baseboard, the back wall, even the spot on that back wall. Yep. The clock is added in, and even the smoke on the iron is added in later on too. So it's all done so that the model can just have some fun. Yep. It's shot against just a plain gray or white backdrop. Even when I use the white backdrop, I let it go to a neutral gray. I light it. We use a flat lighting for this. And then, like you said, we just comp it together. And it's one of my favorites too, because it's a way that I can get into the comping a little bit more and be more creative instead of just shoot it and there it is. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that's a super great one. Exactly. So then, again, you kind of touched on this too, but what are some of the photographers that have influenced you? Especially more recently, right? Because you've been trying to try different things. Who's been inspiring you to kind of... It's been a lot of, like I said, Carl Taylor with his commercial work. I love that. And if you ever, he's a photographer out of UK. Carl Taylor photography. Annie Leibovitz, that kind of stuff. But also, I've gotten into some more local Canadian talent. We were talking about beforehand, like guys like Benjamin Von Wong with his compositing and just the way his wacky mind works. I love looking at his stuff and watching his behind the scenes videos. Renee Robin was another one I said. She's out of Edmonton there. She does a lot of stuff similar to Von Wong, does a lot of comp work. That's mostly what she does, is just comp work. So people like that inspire me. I have a couple friends out of Sudbury, James Hodgins and Rob Provence, who basically in I'd say about the last 5 years have inspired me the most. They're like mentors almost. We're part of a forum together, and anytime I need inspiration, I can talk to them about it or send them a little message, and they're really good at getting back. And so those are guys that I look at, and they're all different, which is what I like.
It's always good to have that kind of group, right? That helps you kind of build that way.
You get guys like Rob, Rob Provence, I was talking about, who's been in the business for over 30 years, and so he's got when it comes to weddings and families, I mean, he's just a ball of knowledge. So
my last question, well, I mean, I have another one at the end here, but my last one is, because I liked your answer to this, what do you feel is the most important post-processing technique? Because your answer was awesome.
One of them was, that was one of them, is basically my biggest secret is my wife.
Your wife.
Because I do, lately I've been doing a lot more of my own post-processing and that, but for the longest time, my wife's been doing it, and she still does. Even yesterday, she was down, I did some headshots in the last week, and she's been down there getting them all prepped and that, but my wife, it's funny, I taught her Photoshop, probably 7-8 years ago. And but now she's better than I am.
She's better than you.
And so I will work on a subject, like maybe a headshot or something, and then she'll look and say, I'm going to make that better. And she'll go and she'll blow me right out of the water. So she is my biggest secret.
That's actually kind of pretty cool, though, to have that like in your back pocket. It's like, I'm going to take the picture, and then, darling, you're going to take care of the rest of it.
I also think simplicity is probably the best post-processing workflow, because there's so many times in Photoshop, and I'm sure you go through this more than I do, because you do a lot of more comp work, is you can go too far.
Yes.
And because there's always like, oh, well, how can I push it more? How can I? And sometimes just holding back.
It's true.
And just saying, you know what, I've done it. It's ready to go.
It's true. And I want to add to that, because yes, comping is kind of what the things I do, and simplicity is probably, I think, for anybody that wants to get into comping, is a good thing to understand, is you can do a comp very simple.
Very sure.
It doesn't have to go and be like 2,500 layers or anything like that. You can do a comp in a simple manner and not overdo it. So.
And keep the eyes sharp.
Yeah.
That's my biggest thing, is the eyes.
Nice. And then again, do you have well, actually, no, I'm just going to go to, you have one wedding here in the Haystack. I'm just going to bring that up. This is, it's a beautiful image. You know,
it's more of a traditional
image. What made you choose to put them there? At that, you know, that spot.
We lucked out that the location that they had chosen for this, for the bride and groom stuff after the wedding was a big farmhouse, and there were so many different. I was able to get so many different looks, but there was something about that barn that had the haystacks were huge, and there was tons of them. It wasn't like they was just sparse. Yeah. They were there, and then just the color of the barn itself, it just contrast, and then that dress was just gorgeous. Yeah, and it's more, you know, now we're not as much traditional as we used to be. A lot of wedding work now is more, we call it freestyle, where it's traditional mixed with candids and mixed with just more the modern look to it. Yeah. But that to me felt, I can do a nice traditional portrait. That's one that can go up as a 20 by 30 up of a wall, like a fireplace or something, and I wanted, she loved that dress and she loved the back of it. And she's like, can we do something with the back of my dress? Yeah. So I said, perfect. And we were shooting some stuff there. And I said, let's do it right here. And there was just something about that haystack. I don't know. I found it made them pop out.
It does. Well, no, it does.
And that's what it is.
It gives a good stand.
Because when it comes down to it, the wedding's about the groom and bride.
Yeah, that's all it's about.
So show them.
Although on your wedding day, it's not about, it's like everybody else. It's about everybody else except you. So it's, and then, you know, do you have any good stories or funny moments from a photo shoot?
Probably the funniest one is actually from a wedding. It was a few years back, and what it was is it was winter, one of my winter weddings. And this was, I think, around January, February. Yeah. And there's a place in Petawawa here that has a bridge that goes over top of the river there. And to get to this, you have to go through this little corridor way. You have to drive in to get into this one little space by the bridge that I wanted to shoot them at, the whole wedding party. Well, in the wintertime, at this time I didn't realize it, they make that into a snowmobile path. Okay. And cars are not supposed to be in there. Okay. So I drove in with my all-season tires. I was fine in my van. The bride and groom, or the bride with her bridesmaids drove in, not knowing that the bridesmaid that's driving in her car, little Cavalier or something like that, had summer tires on. And the guys all stayed back, even though they had the nice big trucks. The one guy was a tow truck driver, and he's telling his guys, like, no, we're not supposed to be in there. So they actually radioed to us on their phone saying, like, we're not coming in, we're not supposed to be in there. We're like, okay, we'll come back out. Well, as I start driving back out, I'm noticing then that they're not following me. So I get back there, and here, their tires are spinning, they can't get out. Now, I wish I had my camera ready, but I felt bad because I'm the one that brought them into the end. So I'm behind with all the bridesmaids pushing this car while the bride's in there flooring it, trying to get it. And somebody was walking by, and they were like, you know what, I wish we had a photo of that because it was the funniest thing you ever see. That would have been the perfect wedding photo, the bride driving with these guns pushing. Never got thought to get it, but it took us probably 20 minutes to get out. We had snowmobilers going by yelling at us, but not helping.
Oh, that's nice.
You're ruining our tracks. One finally pulled over with his kid, and they came, and they actually started, and we were able to get him, and then I just followed them out. And we finally got out. So I made it up to him. We went to a place. We got a lot of beautiful pictures, but it made for a great story that night at the speeches.
Yes, it would make a great story.
And that's probably the funniest one.
Thank you to the photographer for getting it stuck.
And nobody got all dirty in that because it was just snow whipping at them and stuff.
So the last thing I want to talk about is your sports photography, because I mean, I think in terms of our town, there's nobody else that can do it like you do, really. And I almost wish, I know there was some things that happened with the Lumber Kings in the past year or so in terms of, like, you know, however the hockey stuff works with them. But you got the nice group picture of here, and you've been lucky enough that for the last 3 or 2 years?
Yeah, I think this was my third year.
This is your third year now, right? Where you've had the opportunity to work with the Lumber Kings. Again, you know, your sports photography is kind of, it's fantastic for the area.
I think my hockey background helps out.
Yeah, that does help.
Yes.
Being Canadian probably helps too.
Being Canadian, eh?
But yeah, I mean, it's a great shot. I mean, you can't be very creative with the regular group shots, but in terms of the lighting and getting them all lit, I mean, that is a challenge.
This was a little different than the last 2 years I shot them. The first couple of years, we basically just front lit them with a couple lights to get that nice even light. And there's little tricks you can do because I'm just using umbrellas on this. I'm not using anything extravagant, just anything that any photographer can go and buy. It's just 2 studio lights with 2 umbrellas on each side, but I'm crossing the streams to get that even light, because if I lit one facing one way and one the other way, you'd either get too much in the center and it would fall off, or if you do it on the sides, you get too much there and they would fall off. So if you cross it and have the right one lighting to the left side and vice versa, it does that cross light and just evenly lights it. It's really nice. But this year I decided to go a little different, and I actually added 2 kicker lights. You can sort of notice it on the left and right from behind, coming on the sides of their face there and on their hair. I just wanted to separate them from the background. Now, what people don't realize is when you go into a hockey rink, it looks pretty bright.
Yes.
But it's not. To the naked eye, our eyes adjust.
Yep.
But the camera doesn't know that. Nope. And so it's a matter of, you just got to let the background go where it is, unless you want to light the background. And I didn't care. That's not my subject. The subject are the people. They're lucky enough to be able to do it on the ice. They have their logo right on the center ice there. So that helps out. I try not to cover it too much. And we always 3-tier it with these guys. There's so much. If it was 2-tier, it'd be too long.
Too long, yeah.
With minor hockey, we can get away with that. With these guys, we can't.
It's just a really good shot in general, because again, you don't really see that good of quality for your sports photography, right? And it's really, really awesome.
The hardest part is getting them in the proper order, because there's different ways. I know some sports teams that'll actually go by number order. But then I like the heights. I want to make sure that the heads are. You don't want a tall guy on the one side and then go into a short guy and then go back up to a tall guy again. I like to balance it out. The only rule I have is the front row. I always put the goalies on the ends. I always put the captains in the front with the coaches, if I can.
No, it's a really, really good shot. Really, really good shot.
Sometimes I've actually had the coach in the middle too. Depends on how many coaches I got to get in there.
Well, that's like all the questions I have for you, which is, not bad. I want to thank you for obviously coming by, and hopefully you enjoyed your time with us.
Exactly. Next time, hopefully I'll be behind the camera again.
Yeah, well, you will be, right? So yeah, that's episode 5 of Creativity in the Valley, and we had John Butler from John A. Butler come by. Thank you everybody for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you for having me.